Here she is. Hey, Kate.
Got all the Bassings here.
All that were involved in the steering committee.
Go ahead.
And especially glad you've got our whole team here that Ann is with us. Ann is always listening in for stories and connections. And as Mary said, we are doing these meetings across the state, and Ann is sharing that news out via the blog. And so the point of that is just to help people elsewhere know about the work you're doing, what's happening in Tower in terms of broadband. And so we're glad to have her. You guys may remember that I sit on the Governor's Broadband Task Force. And one of the things we're looking at is a way to bring stories to the task force about the importance of broadband as a community economic development tool and the implications of people that aren't connected. And so as we all know, the COVID has kind of shone a bright light on inequities. And so that's why hearing stories from Tower and St. Louis County is really helpful to us and to Whitney too, as we try to bring needs forward to the state. So just to kind of get us warmed up and reconnect with one, it's been a while, Richard, since we've seen you and Kate and everybody. So let's just start with a little check-in and share something that's new and good in our world. New and good in our world.
I'm Kate Bassing, and something that's new and good is there's no more shoveling of snow.
Yeah, and I'm Jo Bassing, and something that's good is I see a lot of daffodils blooming all around.
Wow.
I'm John, and what's new and good is the feasibility study is moving forward in the Blandin corridor between Laurentian and Tita and East Range. So hopefully we'll get something in this next bonding.
Yeah, making progress.
The Bathings have checked in. That's great. Richard, how about you? What's new and good in your world?
What's new and good is that we're going to start spending time out at the lake, and I can get my garden going.
I'm sorry, I missed that, Richard. Get your what going?
Garden.
Garden. Good. Mary, how about you?
Well, I was just outside in between meetings real quick, and I see that I'm just thrilled that we actually had some rain last night, and it looks like some of my perennials are just have just popped overnight, so that's good. I'm happy to see that.
Ann is our urban representative. What's new and good in the metro, Ann, in your life?
I will say, as of today, you can smell the lilacs. I walked out this morning, and there they were. So we've been seeing tulips, we've been seeing a lot of flowers, but today in my neighborhood, the lilacs bloomed. So that's fun.
Thanks. Whitney, how about you? What's new and good in Mountain Iron? Chisholm.
Well, you guys made me think of two things. I got to get out to my office yesterday and go for a drive, and I got a new windshield on my car. It had been cracked for quite a few months, and I finally got that repaired. So it was fun to go out for a drive yesterday.
Good.
Bill, how about you?
Well, now I'm motivated to get the 2 different cracks in my windshield repaired or replaced. Thanks for that motivation, Whitney. That's good. I've got a new daughter-in-law, so that's really good. And the stuff is coming up in my yard. I've got a lot of gardens that things are looking good. I don't try and grow any food because the deer will eat that. So if they eat a host, I wouldn't mind. But if they eat if I planted tomatoes and they ate those, I wouldn't like it. So I just stick with the flowers.
So new and good for me is working from home means that I am home, and in between meetings and stuff, I get to spend more time in my yard. And I really have this quirky thing. I really enjoy digging dandelions. It's so satisfying. My husband thinks it's kind of stupid because they, you know, it's like it's an endless job. The other day I was sitting on the sidewalk and somebody walked by and he looked at me and he says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm down here digging down." And he goes, "Oh, so you didn't fall down there?" No, I'm sitting here digging and I'm okay. So anyway, I enjoy the yard coming to life and being able to dig around in there for sure. Yeah. Well, and last night, we all heard from the governor, his announcement about the new order coming on Monday. And so we're thinking about what impacts that's going to have on our world. At Blandin Foundation, we're anticipating that we'll be out of the office working remotely and dispersed for most of the summer. I think we haven't formally gone there yet, but the governor's saying, you know, he's encouraging people who work from home who can to do that as a way to kind of model and just keep us all safer. So that's the mode that we're in now, of course. And I think that Mary shared with you guys, all got the news. We do have a new CEO that's been designated at Blandin Foundation, Talia Palmer, and we're really excited about that. We haven't met her yet, neither Mary or none of us have on the call here yet. She's going to join us on a Zoom all-staff meeting Monday for a 15-minute introduction. So that'll be our first chance to kind of get to know her. And we're thinking as a team about how to help her get integrated into a new organization under these circumstances, right, where we're all dispersed. And she is from northern Minnesota, you know, born and raised in Deer River, Cass Lake area and Bemidji. So she knows our part of the state for sure, and that's really good. And we're really grateful to Kathy for her leadership on Broadband. She's helped, you guys have heard me say a lot, you know, we're not the Broadband Foundation. And so the fact that we've had the support of our CEO and president and board to do this work has been key. And Mary and Bill and Ann are going to be thinking hard about how to make the case for our new CEO and board going forward, that this is important work. And in the against the relief of the COVID, it's a whole new ballgame. So that's also why we're really glad to have this time with you guys today to hear how things are doing. And Joe and Kate and John, we're just kind of turn it over to you now. And Mary's got a list of projects there that we can, we'll want to ask you about, but just love to hear from you about, you know, John mentioned the RFP. We know about some of the work in schools you've done, but just kind of walk us through, please, your projects, where you're at and what's going on.
Okay, we can certainly do that. Well, the first project, I'm just going by the list that we've sent to Mary in that order. Our first project was in the Township of Brighting. We all sponsored a workstation for the public to come in. And that, to the best of my knowledge, is installed now. They remodeled part of their town hall, and it's very nice and upbeat and lit. It was really an improvement over what they had, and they've got the computer station in there. And I think the clerk's hours are from noon to 5, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so that computer is accessible for people. And I believe people have been using it. So that project was a good success because it's a faster connection there, so people are introduced to what an actual decent connection is like, and give some people, you know, a chance to use a computer that don't have a computer at home.
When they built their new town hall, it was total new design. They placed that prominently as a person would come into the office to pay their bill or to transact with the township. So as you come in, that computer station's right there. So they didn't tuck it away in some back room or anything like that. So
it's very accessible.
Very accessible.
So that project I consider a win for us. You know, I think it's doing what we wanted, and the township was just really very, very
Good to work
thrilled to
with.
get it, and just wonderful to work with. They appreciated it very, very much.
John and Kate, let me ask you just quickly. So how many townships are there in St. Louis County?
Oh, there's a ton. I'd probably be saying 70 somewhere in that. There's none in Cooch County, but you know, in St. Louis County, there's a ton.
Yeah.
And just surrounding us, we have Eagles Nest.
We have
Brighton,
Eagles Nest, Brading Township, Vermilion Lake, Kugler Township, Pike Sandy, Morecambe Township. They're getting
Greenwood,
1 gig now.
Beatty Township.
Beatty, Owens, Willow River. There's a ton.
So you just named 9 just now in that list. So of those 9, how unique is this new computer station that you guys have helped make happen? Is that a standout, or are they just catching up?
That's a standout in this particular group. Yeah, that's a standout. So, you know, our first proposal was to go to Greenwood Township, but they didn't want it. So we went to Brading Township in our local group, and they wanted it. So, yeah.
Is the Brading Town Hall like kind of in Sudan?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a real opportunity to provide access to maybe people who can't afford access, or I mean, Sudan probably doesn't have the best access either, but it's kind of a unique town hall being situated inside the little community of Sudan. So
Yes. And the HUD apartment building is right there. So any folks that might not have a computer that could access computer at that point.
It's just basically kind of in the middle of Sedan almost.
It's basically in the middle of Sedan.
In the town halls.
So, Joe, in our county, in Itasca County, there's an association of Itasca County townships, where all the townships come together on I don't know with what frequency, but they do, you know, get together. Is there? I imagine there's something like that in your. I'm just wondering if the other townships around you or in the area, if they hear about this, if this is a success, if it might help pique their interest and get over that what was it, Greenfield or Greenwood Township, you know, concerns about this? Like, is there a chance to re-engage them around, look what happened? And
yes, there is. There's a St. Louis County Township Association that meets quarterly. So that could be brought to them, and
Do a lot of the townships go to that meeting?
There's quite a few townships that go to that meeting. I've been to those meetings when I was a supervisor, so, yeah.
And I think even people, you know, it might cover a little bit of a geographic area, but people are fairly close and a lot of stuff travels by word of mouth also. So if people are using that workstation, you know, they'll tell other people, well, this is great, you know, why don't you have access in your township or your city or whatever?
The idea didn't die in Greenwood. They afterward got some pressure, and they did install a computer for public use. They did use their own funds to do it.
oh,
And yes, most recently we
there you
had
go. Hey, bingo.
Yes, we had a doctor who was teaching school in Kentucky, and he was up here because of the COVID, and his university wanted him to put on a class, virtual class, and he couldn't get connectivity at his cabin that he had come to with his daughters. And so he approached the clerk at Greenwood Township, and she accommodated him with that computer, and he was able to hold his university class at Greenwood Township.
You guys, let's tell that story. I am so glad Ann is on, because remember there was a big kerfluffle in the media. Remember about this when you guys went, and that was reported in the Timber Jay and maybe the Ely Echo too, about how Greenwood had said no thank you, and what a fantastic outcome. And to tell that story, that here's this doctor who's now, I mean, that's a great, you made change happen. Look at that.
He wrote a letter to the editor in the Timber Jay commending Greenwood Township and the clerk for helping him do this.
So that was good publicity, definitely.
It was great publicity. Yes.
Oh, great. Well,
Well,
Ann will help us share that news. That's great.
The first half of that story where over the disagreements on getting a computer, that might just be salt in the wounds. Isn't it a little bit of na kind of thing? So I like the
Yeah.
story about the usage with the doctor doing the class, but I don't know if you want to poke Greenwood in the eye.
He'll get
Just
you.
appreciate your
If
warning.
But they informed us kind of after the fact that they didn't take the grant because they wanted to have the money available for other people that couldn't afford to put one in. So that's why they put their own workstation in.
Oh, that's nice.
Which was less
Yeah,
than
wasn't
the
that
one
nice
that
of
I
them?
designed.
But that's okay.
However it happened, it happened.
It happened.
It
and That's
happened.
great. It's great that now we have 2 townships that have access to a computer for the public.
Yeah, good. Good. So talk to us about the school projects. I know it seems I'm remembering there were 2 schools locally that you were working with, a charter school and
Yes. And then ISD 2142, I believe is what it is. So with the public school then, 2142, they asked for computers to have a computer lab because they had it's a grade school, okay? It's part of the county school system. And they didn't have a computer lab for the kids. So what we ended up doing there was we did a computer lab with 16 or 17 MacBook Airs and a cart that they can hold them on. So they can basically move that around to classrooms if they have to and have a computer lab. Also, those computers and are available to people in Tower, Sedan, the surrounding area on the nights that they're supervised and as long as the kids aren't using them. So that was a great, I feel that was really a good project. I just disliked the idea so much of having children from, might be K through 6, not having really access to computers. If it made no sense to me. We're just right there. They're at a deficit for the first 7 years of their education. And so I thought that was a very worthwhile project and had a good person in ISD 2142, although we couldn't get any money out of them for the feasibility study, but had a really, really good contact person in the school that, wrote the proposal for the grant and everything. So I'm very positive on that.
Yeah, those computers would be available for community ed programs.
Yes. Or
Uh,
even,
in the evenings that are offered at the school. I can't hear you, Bernadine.
sorry. Joanne, do you have a sense of the teachers there and administrators have had adequate support in integrating that technology, the computers, into their instruction?
I believe so. Yes, because the person that I spoke to, my main person, and then the principal, were very good about letting me know that those, definitely would be totally used by the classroom, and I believe they are. I haven't touched back with Jeff, the technology director, but I'm sure that they're being used.
They were very nice computers, and I think that was probably my favorite thing about that school.
Mm-hmm.
Getting them.
Anything else to say about that? No, not really. Well, to my knowledge, that has been a success. So do we want to move on to another project, or are there questions on that one?
I don't have any more questions about that public school one. Whitney, do you?
Oh, I was thinking it's unfortunate that the kids aren't at the school now, or, but we couldn't have planned that.
No.
No, we cannot.
And if I can contact, I'll try to contact that computer rep at that school and see if they've done anything with, I don't know if they dare let the kids take, they are nice computers, if they dare let them take them home. But I know a lot of areas are finding that children don't have computers at home to be remote, go through the schooling that's remote. And I don't know if they did that with those or not. And that's something I kind of want to follow up on but if they're not there this year, they'll be there next year for the kids when they get back.
Yeah.
Joanne, are you aware whether the school district there has done any surveying of families about connectivity or devices?
I am not aware of that. I don't know if anyone else is here.
My understanding is that Rams has worked with all the school districts in their territory to be in the loop on surveying. So
get on that.
he had some information about the Virginia school district on a call yesterday. So I wonder if we shouldn't have a side meeting just to dig into that a little bit, or I'll dig into it a little bit.
The Virginia school district is having kind of a difficult time dealing with moving to digital, because they have the kids doing their math on a Mac Mini iPad, and it's a whole math assignment, and like the kids writing is just terrible. So I mean, so that they could use an upgrade.
Okay, Joanne, so we can move on then with to the next one you want to talk about.
All right. Have my papers, but they might not be in exact order here. We did at the Vermilion Country School, I always want to call it Vermilion Charter School, we did an interactive field trip lab and / music lab. And this gives the students at this school the ability to learn piano if they want to, because they've got, you know, simulated keyboards, and they have headphones that are connected that can only hear the instructions of the teacher, who is also digitally provided, and they hear their own music. So they're really happy with that. And when we've been at that school, we've been there and they've been using that lab, and it's been really kind of neat to see that that's what they're doing. And we'll hear some music here and there because we don't have the headphones on, but it's working really, you know, great for that particular classroom. And they've been advertising for like music teachers, or really anyone that's musically inclined could come and use that setup if they want to. So the Vermilion Country School is really, they're very community based. They really are, and open to doing things. John, Kate, anyone else?
Well, they had a story in the Timberjay about that music lab, and they had some pictures taken with people that were actually working in the music lab, and they were asking anybody that knew how to play a piano to come on down, work with the students, and enjoy the computer lab, that music lab they had there. So, yeah, I think it's been a real good thing.
That's really fun. I remember when I went there, I had to kind of talk them into even letting us in there to talk to them about the possibilities. And oh no, we have what we need. And then all of a sudden got 3 or 4 teachers sitting together having a cup of coffee, and suddenly there was 10 different ideas on the table. So, and I think the music one might have even come later. And I hadn't really heard about that. I'd heard about them interacting with the older adults for the congregate meal site, and then just their upgraded technology within the school. But that's, the music thing is really cool.
Yeah.
I think working with the new superintendent's been good also. He's very tech savvy, Frank.
Mm-hmm. And he always comments to me, well, if you have any extra money floating around, I can write up another grant, no problem at all. So, but
And with that school, it's interesting that they'll be able to hook up with some other schools that have the same equipment and make ensembles and everything, and it's just outstanding what we could do with it.
And I do thank you, Bill, because I really wasn't getting anywhere with that school. We were going to go and meet with them, and I couldn't make it. I can't remember why, but I was so glad that, well, you have more authority than I have anyway, but it was great that you went in and did that, because
Bill has his ways of persuading people. Joanne, how many students go to that school?
oh boy.
It's about 30, isn't it?
I think it is about
30.
30. If Doug was here, he would know, but he didn't log on today. He's busy.
A little over 30.
And
Isn't that
what
one-
grades, what
Yeah.
grades is it?
It's 7
7
through 12.
No, well, I mean, that's such an asset for your community.
Absolutely.
You really need to take care of that to make sure that, you know, that it stays open and stays vibrant. And certainly technology is one advantage that they would have. Blandin Foundation has a relationship with McPhail Music, that over the years, Blandin has funded McPhail to do distance music education. So that would be an interesting place to contact to see
Yes.
what kind of a relationship they could set up with the Tower School to bring more sophisticated music education to the students. Sounds like they're scrambling a little bit, you know, with, you know, if you have 4 or 5 teachers, what are the odds that somebody's qualified to teach piano or other, you know, but now with the technology, you can get that from anywhere.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, Bill. And yeah, if you guys haven't made a connection in McPhail, let's make that one of our follow-up items from today. Grand Rapids has done that. And the cool thing about McPhail as a partner is that they're very mission-driven to bringing music education opportunities to historically underserved communities. And they have now
free classes
experience
right
with,
now.
and they're very, they've got a shop there in St. Paul where they can do very high-end distance learning music education. So I'm glad Bill raised that. Let's follow up about that.
Yeah, and Ann says that they put in the text box that they have free classes right now.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Wow.
They started that. I think they at first they had it through the end of March, but I think it keeps being extended. I know a few folks who teach there, so. And that's for folks at home.
That's cool.
A tower-like community could swap out, they could, Richard could donate his cabin for a couple weeks and they could start a music camp.
Yeah. It's an idea.
Instead of Yasgar's farm, it'll be Hanson's cabin.
There you go. You guys live right in Vermillion too, so that would be another opportunity.
Yeah.
A lot of times musicians are into a social thing, right? You know, that would be very interesting to say, well, swap out time in a place, you know, up on Lake Vermillion for a week of, you know, 2 or 3 hours a day of music open house kind of thing would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You can do it outside.
Sure.
Good. Well, what do we still have to talk about? Joanne, what else is on your list there?
And the Vermillion Country School also asked for smart boards in the classrooms because they were trying to use large, you know, television screens and or monitors, I guess. And a lot of the students couldn't read them from where they were. And I know that those smart boards have been installed because we've been to the school and they are there and they're being used. I know that for a fact. And that just helps everyone all the way around because, you know, everyone knows what's going on. It's kind of hard to teach math if people in the back can't see what you're teaching, so.
And I've worked with the smart boards before teaching, and they're really slick. They're nice.
So they were happy to get those, and they're, you know, definitely, you know, trying to come up with new curriculum ideas and everything to use with those smart boards. The Vermillion Country School is very appreciative of every single thing that they receive, and they'll keep up their part of the community engagement and everything with that, you know.
Kate, have you ever taught coding to any of those kids?
I was thinking about it. They were talking about getting someone in there to teach the kids basic computer skills or whatever level they're at, you know. And I was kind of thinking that I might do that as like a part-time part-time gig. That would be cool.
They could have the smartest technology kids in Minnesota right there in Tower.
The most
Learning from
Chinese
you. Hacking, you know, you could teach them how to hack for good, and you could
Oh, you
teach
don't
them how
want
to
me
code and security
white
stuff. Or maybe not.
Yeah,
to.
they are going to have an oasis there, a tech, they have an oasis of tech savvy there, of equipment. I mean, it's remarkable what they have there. Compared to a public
And
school,
thanks to Blandin.
right now, they're ready.
They're almost to the point they
The
could
charter
advertise
schools?
as a technology
Yeah.
school. I mean, really.
They really could, yeah. You guys did so much for them, and they're.
Oh, you guys did it, because without you connecting the resource to the need, it would have never happened, so.
We just feel like so happy that you guys came into our lives, because just, it's a struggle up here to get any connection sometimes, so.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that whole, Kate, because I know, remember, one of the goals was just general awareness and understanding and trying to raise communities' readiness to be more tech leaning and forward leaning. And John mentioned that the Ely Echo and the Timber J have done some media work. And how do you feel now, looking back, you know, a year plus? Do you feel like there is more awareness or conversations about technology? Or just reflect a little bit with us about that.
Are you
You
asking
answer,
me?
you answer.
Yeah, I do think that there's a lot of work to be done still in spreading the word. Like my mom said, it's a lot of word of mouth, and people just can't accept that you're a wonderful foundation and you will do it as a grant, you know, and so they're suspicious almost, and so we've had a few problems with some town boards, and we're working on resolving that.
And even with those problems with one particular township we live in, just by having those problems and having them published in the Timber J, I think that brought awareness up to a degree, because we started getting calls at our house, more calls at our house, of people that, you know, are we going to be able to get better internet access when I'm up here and I want to do some work, I can't get it done, or this is my, you know, it's a grandfather, it's my cabin, and I want my grandkids to come up and spend the time, but they don't want to be with all their tech stuff. So we really have gotten a lot of calls that way. I think, and we didn't get those before, so I think it did bring the issue to the forefront for quite a few people that are interested. I think people just never thought it would be possible that we could get anything, and we're hopeful, you know, so I think it was good, for sure, good in that regard.
And then Whitney came to a meeting at the town hall, and that was really nice for her to join us. And I think that clarified some things for some people, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people showed up to the meeting about broadband, and there's a clear desire to have it here.
The challenge I had was going to the townships asking for a contribution for the feasibility, and you know, I got a lot of questions. You know, we'd go in and it would take 45 minutes to an hour, and most of these town boards are elderly people, 70, 80, you know, old people like me, and they have a hard time even trying to figure out broadband, what it will do for them in the future. They don't see what the possibilities are there. Now, I went before the pandemic, so that's different. Maybe they're more aware now, but it was a challenge, but most of them were just fine with it after I explained it to them and took their questions. They were good about it. And I think that's a challenge, is trying to bring technology to older minds and getting them to accept it.
Richard, what does your older mind tell us about that? What reflections do you have about the committee's success at ringing the bell locally or not?
Oh, I think it's been highly successful. Having the campground and yeah. I understand. I don't think it's set up yet, but website is going to be up shortly. So I think it's been well received. Well received. I see a lot of people down at the depot sitting in their cars checking in with the broadband from there.
Okay.
Good,
Great.
that's what we want to hear.
You know, Richard, we didn't cover the Hoodoo Point access funding that you were kind of behind. Well, you were behind getting it. Can you tell us about that a little?
Yeah, the Hoodoo Point Campground has a broadband, what do you call it? You know, they can hook up there, but they didn't have the ability to send that broadband out to all the campers. And there's campers that come up and want to spend the summer there, but they have jobs that they can't do it because they didn't have the broadband. So we had we've had the ability now to cover every single camper up there, and that was basically the Pratt, the guy that runs the campground, Randy Pratt. He's a motivator on that one, and I talked to him a while back, and they were getting excited about it because they can only have the seasonal campground there. So, you know, it's important to them to have the ability to give it to everybody so they can stay there.
Richard, is that a private campground, county owned? Who owns that campground?
City owns it.
City.
Yeah, City of Tower.
Okay. How many campsites are there?
Oh, goodness.
98.
More.
Is it?
How many?
98.
98. I was going to say about 100, so I was close.
You're close.
Yeah, you're very close. Oh. Okay.
You know, you guys are uniquely resourced among small rural places that you have a nice local newspaper there to work with as a partner.
We certainly do.
Yeah.
Because they've had other stories besides the one on the piano and everything. They've been really good about, you know, showing what the school has and even mentioning how they got the equipment and everything, because, you know, one of our other projects was this senior access, public access, student access to a computer lab with 12 computers. And that was the third one that we did at the Vermilion Country School. And the math teacher was kind of taking that under his wing and dealing with that. And also that's teamed with, they have senior lunches and seniors can go in there and have lunch. So around that time, they would have students available, some of the upperclassmen available to teach the seniors how to work the computers if they didn't. So it was really a nice coordination with the community, and the seniors would be right there reading. So it'd be natural just to go and maybe do something else there. So that's been a great addition.
Teaching is a good way of learning as well, so.
And that sounds like the kind of effort that, you know, COVID aside, so if you take that out of the equation, whatever, that
Right.
could be an ongoing effort, right? I mean, once you
It
set
will
that,
be. Mhm.
yeah.
It will be an ongoing effort. And all of those efforts with computers established everywhere so people can have a little more access and feel a little more comfortable with them. It's spreading the word. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
So.
John, do you
Yeah,
want to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about the RFP and your experience working on that, your perspectives on how that's going and where they're at?
Well, Neo Partners is now, we're working on a survey questions. And so that's where it's at now. Neo Partners was hired and GeoConnect was hired to do some background information for us on speeds. And so that's where we're at this point. But we hired the group and we're moving forward with a survey now.
So tell us a little bit about your experience on that team. How do you feel the process is going? What's it been like for you to be part of that?
Oh, it's been really good. I mean, from going to the different townships, meeting those people, it was good to try to get information out there and answer their questions, and basically get contributions from those entities to contribute to this project. I've going to the meetings. I've met with further townships, cities of Boavic, Virginia, with other townships in my area, and so it's good to exchange ideas at those. And through Zoom meetings, we've had a lot of input from potential engineering firms that wanted to get the contract. So I learned a lot of information that way. About Wi-Fi, internet, and fiber to the home possibilities, and how they can change numbers to come out to get a grant. You know, you can have fiber to home everywhere, and that's the highest cost. Where Wi-Fi can reduce your cost and get you in the ballpark. So it's interesting.
Whitney, do you want to share any perspectives from you're involved in that team too, and some of the others that this group might want to hear from you about?
Well, I think that it's really kind of just gaining its steam right now. You know, we have the GEO group working with St. Louis County on a side project, doing some speed testing. But then we will also be having GEO do some more detailed data analysis for the specific study area. And then working with Diane, you know, now that she's been hired and she's moving forward with this, just keeping us on track, and she's so informative, and you know, I think it's going really well. And you know, when we did this with the Central Range, we did that via in-person meetings, and then you had the opportunity to attend electronically. And so it was just really, I think, easy to move this into a completely electronic process. So yeah.
Interesting. Are you fine? Go ahead, Bill.
Well, I was just going to remark that the NEO and the GEO are getting along pretty good. So they're, you know, so that, I mean, that's pretty exciting that they can work together. And I think Diane is really open to what the GEO folks can do and incorporating that into her process. And I don't see really any competitive, you know, negative competition there at all.
Yeah, I was a little nervous that they might be two completely separate tracks, but they're definitely seeing the value of what they both can bring, and maybe even help each other with other projects. Who knows, you know?
You know, Diane made them change their name from NEO to GEO because she's NEO Connect and they were NEO Partners. But now they're GEO Partners, which makes a lot more sense for their name. So it's been a win-win.
Whitney, on that participation thing, I'm curious. So the first one that was optional for virtual participation, and now it's all online. Are you finding with everybody online, are you getting more participation in those meetings than when it was in person plus?
Yeah, I mean, this group has been more engaged than the first group anyways.
Okay.
There's more decision makers involved in this process, I would say, than the first time around. There's some community champions that are also a decision maker, which I think is gonna make a difference in where projects happen.
The Western Range one was all kind of ad hoc. You know, it was Betsy and Whitney and, you know, people that didn't have official standing. You know, but now we have mayors and township supervisors and some
And the community
technologists.
champion.
Yeah. You know, plus the ad hoc folks. So it really has this, it has a lot more standing, I think, than the first study area.
And I think that the one that we are missing a few faces, but they didn't participate. I think the ones that are participating in the Zoom meeting we're getting good participation now of the members that are coming now in the Zoom meetings.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. No, it's really exciting, and we've even had we had the St. Louis County Staff Community Development Director step in last time, and just for them to be in touch with the process and understand the direction we're going, and the work, how this work can help us leverage other state and federal funding, really clicked for St. Louis County there. So
Nice.
I think we're going in a good direction. So.
That's so encouraging. It's really fun to see these opportunities to really build something come into focus. Whitney's a big part of that. She's been a wonderful champion across the whole TAA to get us to where we are. So what have we missed? What else, what other projects, Kate and Joanne, are on your list, or John, that we haven't reviewed today? Richard?
We have one more project to cover.
And Richard kind of suggested or spoke about it in brief, but not formally, I guess. We did have broadband access to the Tower Depot and the farmers market area. And Richard talked about he sees people sitting out there in their cars using the broadband there. And the idea between that was because, the Tower Depot didn't have broadband access, and they used a lot of computers. So they tell people to look stuff up on their computers for things to do in this area for tourists. And the farmers market, a lot of people are there waiting, or you have kids in the car waiting, or will sometimes if they're on one of their devices, they will be more patient and wait a little longer. But that, and Pastor Doug Workman, who was also on our steering committee, was the team leader on that. And I didn't realize it was up and running already, but Richard told us that. And it's a great project, because there again, if people don't have access, they can go there and park and have access. Anybody else?
Well, we've got the TIDA website.
Well, yeah, we have the two. Yeah, we have the two that we haven't talked about yet. But
I have a comment. Northeast Service Co-op has put together a Google map of public Wi-Fi locations. And so I'm gonna follow up and see if the tower sites you mentioned are on there. And if they're not, I will send you the information they need, and we can get those added to the Google map.
thanks, Whitney.
That'd be great.
Do you want to do the website,
No, you
John?
can.
Okay. Then the project that just Mary said they just approved was for the Tower/TIDA website, and that will have a lot of links, and besides information about the Tower Sedan area. And I believe they're going to put a site on there where you can go and pay your bills, so people can interact that way. And that even in itself, if you have a grandchild who's 14 and they're on their computer, and you're a 75-year-old, my odds on having a child is 3, but no, and you're a 75-year-old grandparent, and you don't feel like going to pay your bill, that child could teach you how to pay your bill online, and then you have been, taught broadband in a little way. So that it will get the community into it that way. They'll also have the minutes of the board meetings, the schedule. It's going to be much more elaborate. They had just basically a minimal kind of a website before. So this will be a lot more interactive and links to different places. And I think it's something great for Tower to have, because then there again, it's showing people that, broadband is important. And a lot of people come to this area and they're used to checking things out on their computer. And, it's just a win-win all the way around. Anybody else?
Well, I was trying to get them to include Sedan in it, but I was unsuccessful right at first now. But they accepted the idea that would be a good thing, possibly in the future, for any events that will go on in Sedan. So I think that'll come in the future.
And I did hear them mention that they're going to have a link to the Sedan website, to the Brighting website. So I'm hoping that happens, because it's all a community area.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been a rivalry between Tower and Sedan for years and years and years, and that we just couldn't bridge that gap completely. If we get a link, that'll be wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought that proposal looked, that designer that you found to work on that really knows their stuff, I thought. I was very comfortable with that proposal. One thing I'm glad we have a chance to just mention, and Whitney's a good link here too. You guys will recall that part of the cohort was the Iron Range Tourism Bureau.
Yes.
They were
yes.
looking at regional efforts to highlight events, so they've got a fancy word, attractions. And so that'll be something you'll want to keep in mind, is to make sure that there's good integration. And they're also, I know IRTB is, one of their more recent projects was to develop some new drone footage, video footage of the area for marketing and development. And so just be aware that there's some new resources there.
Right.
Yeah.
Tower's not in the Iron Range tourism area.
You guys aren't in the Iron Range tourism? Oh,
They're in the Lake Vermilion one.
I'm embarrassed.
I didn't know the answer to that either.
I
so
didn't,
I'm very
yeah.
sorry.
You're not alone.
Sorry.
Still, we should have, be aware of what's available to put on that website. And the person that is designing that website happens to be principal / superintendent. I don't know what they call him. I think they call him the principal at the Vermilion Charter at the country school. So
Oh,
he
good.
does
Yeah.
this stuff.
Mhm.
That's pretty much for our grants. I mean, we had a grant to reimburse Richard, who we've already reimbursed, but for going to the conferences and everything like that. But and we still have, I don't have the figure in front of me. It's either like around $22 or $300 left.
I have you down for 72,300 spent approximately, so that would be like 2,700.
Okay. And I had a question from Pastor Doug asking if we can get any more computers for PCs for people, because our whole allotment is gone and we're still having people ask for if there are any available. And I just wondered if some of those funds could be used in that way.
Absolutely.
I did email Mary asking that question.
Oh, did
in
you?
between, so
Okay.
Mary Lucic? Okay,
yeah.
good.
I will say, working with PCs for People, they're a great bunch.
They're really good.
They're fun to work with, and they filled a need.
That was a real positive experience.
It
I mean, the
really
whole thing
was.
was positive, but they really shine out. They really do.
That's great.
Well, Bill's a board member, and so he loves hearing good feedback about his team unsolicited like that, because I know he didn't send you a secret note in the chat to say that. So that's really nice to hear.
Oh, here we go. I've got it right here.
Bill was telling us earlier today that their goal is to give out 1 million computers. They've really ramped up their scale. They're a national organization now.
Good for them.
So basically, Bill, and I should just, Kate sent that email to Mary, and we could use that to
Yeah, so
write up.
whatever money you have left, you can say, you tell them I have $2,800. How many computers can I get?
Okay,
I can do a follow-up email on that and
Okay.
get the data.
that would be great. 'Cause that question from Doug.
So all of your projects so far are going well and on budget, so you don't see any other?
No, I think we jumped through the
Starts.
thing quite a
Yeah,
bit, didn't we?
I think the hard part was that getting everyone to believe that this could be like a grant match thing, as opposed to just they have to pay, something like $600 a month to get fiber at their house. Like, so I think jumping over hurdles like that and just not knowing exactly what broadband is, now that it's out there more, I think that there's a lot more understanding of it and the need for it.
I don't know. I believe Kate and John probably, feel this way too, that maybe John has a little more experience from being a supervisor on the Greenwood Town Board. But Kate and I really had no idea how you even go about this and what a wonderful learning experience it has been for us. I will not hesitate to take another project on like this. I didn't know anything about how you write grants or doing Mary's budget. She gave me an example. She did work for me, so Kate and I could follow it.
And by Kate and I, she means Kate.
Well, I told you the numbers. You dealt with a spreadsheet. So, yeah, so it's been it's been a very positive all the way around, really. We had those hurdles at the beginning, and Greenwood is always going to be somewhat of a hurdle, even for getting CTC or Paul Bunyan in, but
We'll keep at it.
Well, you guys have had some, I mean, certainly the city was in chaos when we started, you know, with the clerk and new mayor and all that stuff. And then start with that and end with the COVID. You guys have done pretty good. Keeping it rolling. Had a good group that worked together, and we appreciate that. You know, you're the smallest community we've ever done this work in, to be a broadband community. And so we really appreciate, you know, the citizen leadership. Usually there's a city administrator or a school superintendent or someone like that, a position of power that leads these activities. And you guys, you know, it's just a group of folks from the community, and Richard being on city council and so on. But I mean, it's, you guys have done a good job finding projects and making sure the projects get done. And, you know, the projects at the depot and the other the park, the improvement to the school, those are real meaningful projects that have long-term impact for your community. And you could even almost say, you know, that, you know, if your school thrives on technology and music, and which is a real opportunity for a district, you know, school like yours, to have those kind of specialty items that says, yeah, kids want to go to that school so they could play in a band or do the computer stuff, or, you know, that's a real asset for that school to stay on a good course. So congratulations to you guys.
Well, thank you.
I'd like to say working with Doug and Richard and
that.
Merritt they've been great. So
Yes. And Doug and Richard really gave us ideas, came up with good ideas for you know, the Hoodoo Point project and the
Tower area.
the farmers market area, and ran with those. And, you know, they know the communities. We live in Greenwood, we're out on the lake. We're not exactly a part of Tower Sedan. We don't feel that we aren't, but we're not there day to day learning, you know, all the intricacies and what they may need. And Richard and Pastor Doug and Merritt were very helpful with that, and couldn't have done it without the whole steering committee. Richard has been just a great asset, as Pastor Doug too. So thank you, Richard. And that goes without saying, Kate and her father.
Yes. You know, it's fun in this little Brady Bunch setup that we're here. On my screen, Joanne and Kate are below John. And so when you look up to him, it looks like you're looking up to the little square. It's so cute. Funny. So Mary's focusing us on the you know, the grant. We're aware of the grant deadline, and as she said at Blandin, it's not a big deal, but it almost sounded like if you with that 2,700 or 2,400, with this idea that maybe you wouldn't need an extension even to get that done. So that's something just you and Mary can work on together.
Right. The grant ends on June 30th, but we're in the process of extending the grant period with IRRR. Just, you know, everything's crazy right now. It doesn't seem like that might be a little bit ambitious to get PCs for people up making a delivery, but and to get the website built. But yeah, if you need, once you kind of know what your timeline is, if you just want to send me an email saying how much longer you need, then that shouldn't be a problem.
Because I do think well, they'll be working on the website, you know, obviously I'll let them know today that the grant was approved, but that probably wouldn't hurt to get, maybe to think about an extension. I'll talk to Frank about that. And then, yeah, the PCs for people just depends after we talk to Mary there to see. And we might need an extension on that one too.
Yeah, and it's just one extension, so all the projects are kind of one grant period.
Oh, okay.
just,
Okay.
come up with your final plan of getting all that money spent and let me know.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
So our team has just a few kind of updates to share. I wanted to be sure that you were aware about our planning for the annual conference that we do, and it was wonderful to have Richard with us at that last time, and you guys were there. It was great, and so we appreciate that, commitment you made to come and meet with others and learn, and it feels to me like you brought a lot of that back to your project, so that was great. So this year, our planning team at Deed and Blandin have decided we're going to try a virtual conference. We're figuring out what that might look like. It's kind of fun. Anne is leading us through the new world of online engagement experiences. And we're trying to put together a really compelling experience, maybe dispersed across a couple weeks with some opportunities for people to interact with one another and learn some stuff. So we have some tentative dates for that in the first week in October. So we'll get those details out to you as they develop over the next month or 6 weeks or so on the dates.
That sounds great.
I also just wanted to shout out to make you aware that on our website, Blandin Broadband website, there's a new section there about webinars.
Yeah.
And like the rest of the world, we've been putting a lot of trying to figure out how to do this work online. And in fact, we're starting up with a whole new cohort now, and we're going to even remember all those vision meetings when we came up there. We're just Bill and I and Mary designing a way to do that online. So we're starting a whole new cohort. But some of the other program we just completed delivering a 10-part series on broadband leadership development. That's kind of a soup to nuts for, you guys have been through this now, but I just wanted you to be aware that it's on our website. All those webinars are archived there. And Ann and Mary did even a couple on broadband in the time of COVID about educational tools and using online meetings. And so maybe not even for yourself so much, but as you continue to work with Greenwood Township or others there, just be aware that those resources are there.
I've seen 4 of them now, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
behind him.
I follow Ann's blog regularly.
Yeah.
It's a
Cool.
daily.
Ann's readership has just gone through the roof since COVID. She's got just a lot of new eyeballs on her work, so that's cool.
It's great work. I mean, she keeps you abreast of everything as far as like the state government and grant possibilities. She does a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so that's kind of what I've got in terms of updates from Blandin. Bill, do you want to, or Mary, what am I missing? What do you want to add on?
Did you want to talk about the new connected partnership?
The partnership thing? Sure.
Yeah.
So, hold on just a second. Hey, Dennis, could you turn that down just a little bit? Because I'm not on mute here. I'm sharing my office space here with my husband. So the governor's office has tapped Best Buy to stand up a public-private partnership in the next several weeks to help address the needs for distance learning support, devices, internet access, and supporting services, including mental health, tardiness, teacher support, and learner support. And the Blandin Foundation has been asked to be a founding partner. We're helping lead and design this effort. Best Buy is committed to raising $4.5 million in the next several weeks, that these funding partners are going to turn around and figure out a way to get that money out across rural Minnesota as close to the ground as possible into the hands of people that can use those resources for, again, devices, connectivity, and supporting services. And so we're figuring out what that might look like. We're probably, the point of entry is going to be the Minnesota Education Technology Network. They have a really elegant acronym, MITTEN, which I'm learning to pronounce, Minnesota Education Technology Network, and you guys and your school districts are all hooked in there in some way. I could send you the map if that'd be interesting for you to see the map of that, because it lists, there's about 16 or 18 of those clusters or entities that are groups of school districts. And your school district will be familiar with this. I'm learning a lot as I go, but the MDE, Minnesota Department of Education, and the feds usually have these designations of eligible entities to apply for funding through collaborations like this, educational collaboratives. So Northeast Service Collaborative will be hooked in, IASC, like that. And the goal is to get these funds out the door soon, in June, July. And the big goal is to help ensure that schools and learners are positioned to engage in equitable distance learning come fall.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good idea. I am partnered directly with Google just because of the work I've done with them. So if Google is huge on education, as Apple is. And if I can do anything to help, let me know.
Wow, super, thank you. They have a very ambitious, I forgot to mention, they're working with the Minnesota Business Partnership on the fundraising front and doing the CO ask, and they seem to be really bullish on the idea that they can raise this money right away. So we were on a call earlier this morning, and it helped me recognize there's a big context, all the CARES money that's out there that the state apparently is thinking about how to push down to cities and counties and townships even. And then we know at the state legislature, there's some money that is being set aside for potentially reimbursing school districts for COVID-related tech expenses. And there's a little piece in there for telehealth, and then some extra money potentially for the broadband fund itself. You know how that lends. So part of the task of the founding partners of this partnership with this, what's 4.5 million when you look, at the need and all that, is to try to make sure that that money is additive and helpful and not redundant and doesn't just go into sand. So I guess stay tuned on all that.
Great.
Yeah, that would be wonderful if we could get some other partners involved, Google, Apple, anybody. I think that'd be great.
Bernadine, I just was thinking how much more valuable that kind of effort is going to be in Northeast Minnesota based on the work we've been doing the last 4 or 5 years. Just raising the knowledge base, understanding, and things like that, connections. Mm-hmm.
Well, I know in Itasca County, part of what their folks are figuring out now, and we were talking about this earlier today, that of course the school devices all go back to the school when school ends, right? So if you've got any of these one-on-one device programs that the kids have taken those home now, those will be collected. And the schools have been providing food to first responder kids. And so how all that food and how that food support's going to happen and then get layered over with safety security programming is being figured out here in Itasca County, really close to the ground. And I think it's going to look very different in every part of the state, just depending on, to your point, Kate, who the partners are, right? Who's working together.
Yeah, it's all about networking, right?
Yeah. Well, Whitney, do you have any, you got these leaders from Tower on the phone here. Is there any questions or things you wanted to share or ask before we move towards winding our meeting up?
Well, I would just say get people to take that speed test that St. Louis County's shared, continue sharing that information. And then gear up for just making sure that as the survey comes out related to the feasibility study, that people are taking that too. I think that's just to really be up, besides what we've talked about today with your projects, those are kind of the 2 key things to be thinking about over the next month.
And I would add to that in regards to the study is that, there is going to be state broadband money this fall, and don't necessarily wait for that study to be completed before you start talking with telecom providers, whether it's CTC or Paul Bunyan or whoever, about trying to form up a plan to submit grant applications for this fall. Don't you think, Whitney?
Yep, and I know like Diane's going to try to speed up the process and make some changes to how that all goes so that she can be helpful in that too. So, but like Bill said, it's the community champion, that person, that connectivity with the provider that really gets them going. So.
We've been working on the speed test. So in Greenwood Township, we've had a big increase in the numbers that have taken it now. I'm going to try to reach out to Beatty Township and get them going on that.
Have you guys noticed poor service as people come up to the lakes more? Because I know Commissioner Phillips has really been struggling. Early on he was doing okay, but now more in and out. He was even on his cell phone for a meeting recently instead of using his Frontier connection.
Yeah, the other night I was pulling 0.27 megabytes on a download and 0.23 on an upload. So that's just.
Were you actually downloading?
It's almost dial-up.
Was it a speed test that you did?
A speed test. I took MLab's speed test, and that's what I was getting.
It's not exactly accurate either, because I was downloading something from a website that no one else was on, because it has a little forum and it tells you. And so it should have been really fast, and I was getting like 0.3 kilobytes at some point. So it's a little challenging. We're so lucky to have you guys come into our lives.
Because we don't really have an ability to get any other internet here right now.
No.
So, like
it's
fixed.
Usenet, no fixed Wi-Fi. No. They don't offer it. And cellular. And then Frontier.
And he said sometimes isn't that fast in this area. We've looked, and cellular is a little faster. But
it might take, we're watching Westworld, it might take 3 hours to watch one episode.
So I think I'm going to go to bed at 9 o'clock. It's 11:30.
Buffering.
It's 3 hours to watch it and 20 hours to try and understand it.
Yes. And you can watch them over and over and you still miss things. But
well, let's I'd like to, you guys did such a great job checking in together. Let's, as we go to close out the meeting, I'd like to invite each of you from our tower team to just share for one another as much as for us a hope that you have about your work going forward. So what you hope for this, you guys have had a great, you're not all with us today, your team. What do you hope that for the future?
Well, my main hope for the future, which is probably similar to John's and Kate's, but they can speak, is that we do get higher speed connectivity in this area. Even if we don't get up to the broadband, standards of speeds, if we can get some type of an improvement, I would like to see people get broadband speeds, and they might in the areas. But I really, that's my ultimate on this, was getting people aware of the situation, getting people aware of how it can be used. Because look at, doctors are doing a lot of digital patients now. I know our daughter is. Telehealth, thank you, lost the word. And that's because I'm 66. Those words hide. So that would be my biggest thing, would be to try to get better access to this area, to bring equality, because we're really at a deficit at all ages. And I do worry about the children, because we have to start somewhere. If we don't start getting them knowing what's going on, that's a lost generation in this area. Now,
on that note, I would just say I am looking forward to seeing and meeting the person who is going to possibly teach coding at some of the 2 schools, and I would love to brainstorm and get involved in
Mine would be way back in November of 18 when Bill first came to Tower and put a presentation on there. From then forward, there were so many people I met that said that they'd move here, but they don't have the connectivity. I met a fishing a guy that has a website to tell you where to fish on our lake, and he said he'd move there permanently, and so would a couple of his friends if there was connectivity. I met an architect who's semi-retired, who lives in the cities, and he won't move here because he can't get connectivity, but he would if he could. And just the other day, a friend of mine, he had to go to the dermatologist, and it was going to be virtual, but he couldn't connect, so they had to cancel the appointment, and he had to go down during COVID and into the hospital. And he didn't like that too much, but he went down and had to have it done there. I'm just hoping that at least one group out of this Blandin feasibility study gets a grant from Border to Border, RDOF, or Reconnect at some point in this next granting period. That's I'm looking short term, and that's what I really want.
And then we have Richard to find out what Richard really.
Well, I think that the ability for having the kids at home get the education, because that's one of the problems I think that's come up in there, is that they can't conduct their learning from home because their computers aren't their connection isn't good, and that worries me because you don't want them to get behind.
It's a really good point.
Good one.
Yeah.
Good.
Wow. Wow. That's really an inspirational note and you know what? You guys have done the work that you're positioned to help make all those dreams come true. I mean, it's not pie in the sky. There is a clear path through the work you're doing now to get those dreams in Tower, to get that network built and people online and the architect in town and the fishing in town. So I hope everybody's feeling really good about it. It's been a real pleasure to work with you guys. It's, as Bill said, we weren't sure because you're the smallest community we ever tried to work with, but we've learned a lot along the way, and it's good to hear that you have too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your good work, everyone.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you for the opportunity to do the good work.
Yes, thank you.
All the best.
Have a good day.
Stay in touch. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.